Thanks for joining the Mike on Mike program. And if you're watching on Facebook, you know the drill. There's so many more people that watch this show than are following that page. And you're going to miss the next show if you don't follow that page. So follow the Mike on Mike page. And joining me today is Matt Spurlock. Some may already know the name. I sometimes get it a little bit mixed up with Morgan Spurlock.
Yep.
You know, what is that guy's name? I know it's Spurlock.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, Matt Spurlock is running for Josephine County Commissioner position 2, just like everybody else is.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of candidates this year.
Eight in that race. Yeah,
8 in the position 2 race, and that's not even position 1.
2 years for that one.
Yeah, 2 years. Everybody's fighting for a measly 2 years.
Right. Yep.
So, Matt, why do you want to run for commissioner?
It's a great question. I feel like a lot of people in the county don't really have representation at the county level, especially in the commissioner's office. And I think that we need some changes. We've had a rough decade or so. And I think that I can bring some youth, a little different perspective to the office, and try to help avoid some of the issues that we've been dealing with, from lawsuits, dealing with the unhoused crisis, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I can make a difference.
Yeah, but those lawsuits are really more of a city thing. I don't know what lawsuits having to do with the homeless have been provoked out of the commissioner's office.
No, that was a separate issue. So, no, to my knowledge, there's no lawsuits there. It is just
like
employment
the
lawsuits.
biggest thing that's happening here.
Sure.
is that issue. So
yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I was definitely referring to the employment lawsuits that we're facing right now, and the lingering lawsuit from American Mineral Research as well. So just trying to work with HR, work with the county charter and the state law, and to avoid lawsuits like that in the future.
Yeah, and it's a little weird. Now, I don't have any intimate knowledge as to what took place during these, I don't know that they're firings, but they're what would you call it? They discontinued the employment of somebody. I mean, It's effectively the same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't really understand what took place in there. So in terms of, illegality, I don't know what happened. I know what the motivation of the people that were instituting that was, and that is to cut down on the number of employees and sort of consolidate duties in a smaller number of people. And that's smaller government that costs less theoretically. Right. Now, whether they did that correctly or not, I don't know. What do you see the problem as being right now?
I think that the problem was that, the initial problem was the other two commissioners consolidating their power over personnel into one person, which to me that does violate the charter.
I still don't understand that, and I can't get anybody that was involved in that to talk to me about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, and there's pending litigations. That might be why.
Yeah, but is it directly related to that? I think it's more about the individuals. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, and one I can't answer for you. But yeah, it's the problem being, firing these people that were very near, being fully vested for their retirement. Yeah. And these people did have contracts. And so opening us up to wrongful termination suits, and these people have a lot to lose. So they're definitely going to fight it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and so and once again, not being in the room, we just have questions because we really haven't gotten a whole lot of answers. But what I would do going forward is working with HR, doing these meetings in public, hirings especially.
Yeah, and I would have thought that and maybe some of that stuff was done behind closed doors during all of this. I don't know about that, because normally all of this is supposed to, they can talk about it in an admin session,
right?
But they're supposed to do the business at the weekly business session. It's supposed to be hashed out and voted on there. So yeah, I don't really, not too hip on that.
Right.
So tell us a little bit more about your background. A lot of people probably know who you are already, but let's go ahead and just talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of people that think they know who I am.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about that. So I'm originally from West Virginia. One of the few people that didn't come here from California, it seems.
Yeah. I'm a Californian transplant.
There you go. Right.
And the funny thing was, when we first got here, it was 22 years ago at this point, you run into people in the supermarket and they're all from California.
Right.
I thought, wow, where are the, homegrown people? But they are here.
For sure. But yeah, I moved here in 2010. Well, before that, I lived all over the back east, Georgia, Florida, Ohio, and West Virginia primarily.
So you're getting away from the humidity here, or is that the deal?
A little bit. Yeah. No, I chased a girl out here. So she was originally from Grants Pass, and we met online on MySpace. So that
MySpace,
tell you it was a while ago. Yeah. And so she ended up getting a divorce, and my relationships kind of fell through, and decided to come out here and see if it would work. So she flew with a one-way ticket, from Portland to Charleston, West Virginia, and we met at the airport for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then 3 days later, we're coming out here in my 98 Honda Civic that my dad said, I wouldn't trust that thing to make it to the end of the driveway.
Wow.
And you're going to drive it across country.
Well, that'll test a relationship.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But no, I was definitely goo-goo eyes in love at that time. And but yeah, we got married, we had a kid together, and we're together for 8 years, and we started the business together. It started right here in Grants Pass on G Street. We were in the Papa John's complex there.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
the train station. And it was called Spurlock Art and Wine, and we did sip and paint classes, and we called those Wine and Brush.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we had 3 locations here in Grants Pass. So we started there, and then we went to H Street, where Musashi is now.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we moved into our last studio here in town. It's in the plaza right before Bimart. So where Duo Gym has been, it's there on the right.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. There's like an ice cream place and a couple of places in there. Yeah.
Right. So that was our biggest studio. It was 5,000 square feet. And,
wow.
We had a restaurant in there and a wine shop, and we were doing those sip and paint classes all the time. And we grew to expand into Jackson County as well. And she still has that studio, so it's in the shops at Exit 24. And so she's still rolling with that. But she and I split up in 2018, and we have a great relationship now and all that. But I departed from the business. I was the business side; she was the talent, and so it made sense for her to learn more of the business side and keep the business going, than for me to try to find somebody to replace her, because she's irreplaceable in that business. Yeah, so, and beyond that, worked a lot of service industry jobs here. So my first job was out at Morrison's Lodge. Had some connections there, and just waiting tables, bartending. And then worked at the Bohemian for years. A lot of people know me from there. Then I got into distribution. So I was selling beer and wine in all the restaurants, grocery stores, all over the county.
So were you driving one of those trucks around that has all the,
I was the guy that went out. I was the guy that went out the day before.
Oh, gotcha.
So I would go out and write the orders, and then the delivery guys would come the next day and fulfill it. But yeah, I got to know, everywhere in the county. I've worked in Wolf Creek, Williams, Cave Junction, all over. Really getting to know the place, getting to know the people, a lot of the business owners.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then the political activism part, when did that's fairly recent, really?
It is. I mean, I was always, kind of clued in. I was a history major in school, history and political science. And so politics was always something I saw myself getting into eventually. My plan was to be a history teacher, but a combination of poor job outlook, having to commute all the way to Ashland to go to school, and having 3 kids and a business, it just made more sense to focus on the business and to run that with my wife at the time. But yeah, and then in the last year and a half, 2 years, I really got more involved, especially with national politics. So I was paying a lot of attention to the 2024 election and everything leading up to that. And unfortunately did not go my way.
Yes.
And then just seeing what Trump 2.0 looked like, and it's not the direction that I would want the country to go. And so I started out just by myself out in front of the courthouse. I'd have a couple signs, call a couple friends, have them come meet me, and then I started to get connected with other people that felt the same way. And then somebody had the idea of resurrecting Rogue Indivisible, which had kind of fallen by the wayside after 2020. And so we did that, and then we started. The first big rally that we had was the Hands Off rally back in March, I think, of 25, and it's just grown from there. At the last No Kings, we had over 3,500 people.
Oh yeah, and that was definitely the largest one that I had seen. That was a couple Saturdays ago,
Yep.
I guess, and I just happened to be driving through there. I'd gone to the top of town to get a in and out, and drove through there. And, wow, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people. A lot of people feel that same way. It's. Yeah, and everybody comes out with a different reason. So we're not telling people, okay, we're protesting ICE this week, or something like that. We just tell people, like, here's where we're going to be. And my contribution is really just trying to facilitate it. So I bring the sound system. I'm a musician, so like I have all that, and I have an ability to organize people, and just kind of do that.
So, total transparency, this won't come as a shock to anybody who watches any of my stuff, is that I'm on the opposite side of the political spectrum from Matt here. And a lot of people wonder, I have heard people say, oh, they're busing them in from out of town. I happen to know that is either mostly false or 100% false, because I've gone through the protests and seen people and talked to them. And so they're not people that I run into on a regular basis, but that's because we're in different clans, Sure. This is how this works. Unfortunately, with politics, is we don't do a whole lot of talking to one another. Now, there are certain objections that I have to things that I have seen there. And that I think is just, relationships. People are going to have to get past the whole, everybody who voted for Trump is a Nazi, because you're not going to get elected in this town saying that sort of thing, because there's, this county went for Trump in a big way in 24. And there are some people on that side who were openly out there doing that. I haven't seen you doing that. But, and there is no question some people on my side of the spectrum that are overly zealous about their opinions on the other side as well. So
Sure.
I think it's a two-way street.
No, I completely agree. And to your point about busing people in, that sort of thing, there were over 100 No Kings events on a couple Saturdays ago, the March 28th, and just in Oregon there were 100 events. And so Ashland had one, Jacksonville had one, Medford had one, Roseburg had one. So as far as busing people in, like, from where, so we do bring in people.
What you're saying is that if you bus people in from Ashland, you'd be taken away from something going on down there.
Yeah, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, kind of to boost your numbers, and it doesn't make any sense. We do have people that come in from all areas of the county. So Rogue Indivisible, it's all a loose-knit group anyway. Like, there's no blood oaths. There's no real membership as far as that goes.
This is something, another thing that people wonder about is they wonder about what is the funding stream? What is the organizational makeup of Rogue Indivisible? People speculate that there is, Soros connection or something like that.
So, to my knowledge, Soros gave $7 million back in 2017 to Indivisible when they first got started. As far as
and that's the nationwide.
Yes.
And so, obviously, there's at least a name affiliation there. Do they help you with organization? No. In some way?
Not at all. So we've never taken a dime from Indivisible National or from a person that lives outside of Josephine or Jackson County. And as far as, the structure, there's 4 elected officers. So me, I'm the chair of the group. Then we have a vice chair, a secretary, and then a treasurer. The treasurer doesn't have a whole lot to do because we don't have a whole lot of money. But, standing out in front of the courthouse doesn't cost us anything. Using my sound equipment doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah, you just have to motivate people, and that's...
So for the first time ever, we did T-shirts for No Kings 3, and we did it as a fundraiser because basically the only thing we spend money on is buying water, sunscreen, earplugs, those sorts of things for the rallies or for renting space at different places. So like we did a rally in Riverside Park last year, and we rented the field, or we'll rent a room at the Newman Methodist Church, just to be able to have access to like a little kitchen and bathrooms. So for No Kings 3, we fed like 100 people, 50 of them were from the unhoused camp. And, we had bathroom access there. So we're not overrunning the library or, sending, hundreds of people into businesses.
Right. Yes.
So just doing stuff like that. But, none of us are paid. It's all volunteer. Like I said, we've never gotten money from the national organization. And total, I think we've raised about $1,500 in the year that I've been involved with them. And most of that was from this T-shirt thing that we did a couple weeks ago.
I know that people want to characterize their political enemies in certain ways, and that's fine if it's true.
Sure.
But I don't want to do that sort of thing, and I'll probably catch some flack for saying that. But that just is what it is. I think you need to understand that. I don't know what it means for the county and the way that people are going to vote in the county, because you can be great at mobilizing basically Democrats, I would assume is the demographic that we're dealing with here. But that doesn't mean that the Republicans in the county aren't going to vote for who they want to vote for.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am encouraged by what we've seen across the country. As far as, Democrats or, people on the left, we've seen 30 and 40 point swings, from the right to the left, places where Trump won by, 20 points. The candidate there lost by 20 points, especially in Texas in these special elections.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, it's signaling, a shift. The people that just aren't happy with, ICE activity or the war in Iran or any number of things, Venezuela or whatever.
Right. And we won't debate any of that stuff here. I know some people seeing Matt Spurlock, they're thinking this is going to be a war. No, because it's pointless. I already know what Matt thinks of that, and I think you know what Matt thinks of that. So it's hashing that out has nothing to do with whether or not he's the right guy for the job as commissioner.
Exactly. Yeah, the commissioner position is nonpartisan, and I think that's by design because they don't really deal with the culture war, major partisan issues.
Right. Yeah.
But I've had a lot of people.
Well, there's 58 cents.
Yeah.
And the 58 cents doesn't even take care of the basic functions of government here right now.
Right.
We have levies and everything that are supplemental to that, and so I do have, some reluctance on the basis of, typically Democrats are government is going to solve all your problems, and if you just pay more in taxes, it'll take care of that. In this county, I don't think that really works too much. It's a situation where it's a very poor county.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people here with money, just like everywhere.
For sure.
But property taxes are my biggest hit of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and then income taxes on top of that. If you got people on fixed incomes here, you can't really add a whole bunch of levies for pie in the sky ideas that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if good things are going to be done, I would hope that as much as possible can be done in the private sector, philanthropy and just people donating their services to take care of needs of the community, as opposed to the government stepping in and doing that. The local government doesn't have any money to do that. It's interesting. A friend of mine, Mark Seligman. Mm-hmm. Okay, now people might find that weird that Mark's a friend of mine. He is. We agree on a lot of stuff. He's a now. I think his national politics stuff is goofy as hell, and he hasn't learned not to call people Nazis all over Facebook, unfortunately.
Right.
But in terms of, a yet another expense for local residents to absorb, he is in the same camp as I am. Mm-hmm. on that. So where are you on, like, we have a couple levies coming up. There's, mm-hmm. I believe there's another law enforcement levy. There's the animal shelter, yep. Things of this nature. What do you think? What do you think about those?
Well, just speaking generally first, to my knowledge, we are the poorest county in the state, and we also have the lowest property taxes in the state. That makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to ask people that are, we're largely a retirement community. We're one of the oldest, aged populations in the state. And to ask people that are on a fixed income for more money doesn't make sense to me. So where I think that we can shore up our budgets is to go to Salem and go to DC and to bring our tax dollars back here to work for us, through grants or different programs. But speaking specifically to the animal shelter levy, I am in favor of it. So it's going from 11 cents up to 18 cents. Is the proposal. And I used to live on the property of the Rogue Valley Humane Society. And so I got to see, a little bit closer than most, what's going on with the animal population and the spay and neuter programs when the last levy failed. And it's been devastating. And, I think that, whether you're right or left doesn't really matter. We all love animals. We want to see them taken care of.
Yeah, and I think typically the animal shelter does pretty well
right.
during elections. Mm-hmm. And people sometimes tend to like their animals more than they like other people.
Absolutely.
So
mm-hmm.
that's how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, how does your ideology inform how you would be as a commissioner?
Well, kind of stay on that same subject. Back in 2023, we had the opportunity to declare a homelessness state of emergency. And John West and Herman Bartschiger voted 2-1 to not do that. They were concerned about strings being attached to the money and, just generally speaking, not really wanting to take money from a Democratic governor here in Oregon. And so what we saw is that Jackson County did take the money. They got $8.8 million. And there were no strings, really to be seen. It was money is earmarked, deal with the homelessness crisis as best you can. And then Josephine County got nothing. So where, my ideology would be, I'm going to take money from anywhere. If if Donald Trump wants to write a check for Josephine County, I will cash that, and it will feel even sweeter to do so. Because I feel like, we can't wish away our problems. We can't, cut our way to prosperity. But I think that we can bring our tax money back here to really work for us in a productive way.
Besides that particular grant, are there other grants that you're aware of that we're somehow ignoring here in terms of bringing money back?
I think that we have passed on some grants, not so much even grants, but from money with marijuana, so that there has been money on the table in other aspects that we have declined. And I think that comes from a perspective of wanting to have limited government. So, for me, like, that money's already been taken, and hopefully, we don't have to continue to raise taxes because we are bringing in so much money to pay for the things that we need. Like you said, that 58 cents doesn't cover, half of what we need. Right. And so if we're able to bring in that grant money and shore that up and keep that at 58 cents for as long as possible, then I think that's what we should be doing.
I know that when the marijuana thing became a big deal here, it was like a gold rush.
Right.
Everybody and their brother was setting up a grow site, and it sort of overwhelmed the system.
Definitely.
and there were issues because of it. A lot of complaints from people, and then a lot of operations. Then there were illegal operations that were set up that were dumping stuff into the environment that wasn't good. And so I think that soured people on that, but there's still marijuana being sold here locally, and I think that's where that money comes from. Because it's a percentage somehow of sales, is it not?
No, it is. It is, and I completely agree that the rollout of that program
is messy.
Oh, to say the least.
Yeah.
So the OLCC, controls licensing for marijuana and alcohol. And they didn't hire any more people to deal with having 3 times as much work.
Yeah. And listen, if it was that way here, it was that way in many other counties.
It was everywhere.
Well.
Yeah. And so the OLCC office is regional. So we had to deal with the office in Medford. And so they're trying to send people from there all the way up to Wolf Creek, to inspect sites. And you have one person that's supposed to inspect like 50 sites a day. And it's just not happening.
You can barely drive to 50.
Exactly. And, just all the issues with water. So I don't know if it should have been an issue to go through county planning, to be able to get approval or not. But yeah, that rollout was very messy. And it, just like the gold rush, we called it the green rush here. And it seems like the only people that really made money were the ones that were selling the supplies.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a lesson there, and you could have learned it if you'd read some history books from the 1840s there. If you're going to go to a town like that to dig for gold, sell shovels to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the capitalist way of doing it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I would want to be able to explore that more, because it's my understanding that the money is really supposed to go where it's grown. And so we're growing probably as much, if not more of it, per acre than anybody. So is that money coming back here?
Even now.
Yeah.
I'm not really familiar with how the allocation works there.
Right. Yeah. And I certainly have more to learn on that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, what else is there? What are there any other particular issues having to do with being a commissioner that you'd like to cover?
Sure. So code enforcement's been one of the big ones. So just going to the meetings and people standing up and saying, like, I've been making complaints, on my neighbor's property. They're dumping raw sewage into our stream. or there's trash everywhere, or the board shanty fire started because of a lack of code enforcement, and it was avoidable.
Got a site on my street doing the same thing, and it's been doing it for years.
Right.
And it's you know what, and when you call them, they say, well, call DEQ.
Right.
And then they go, no, and call environmental health in your own town. They're ping-ponging back and forth.
Exactly. Just hoping that you stop calling.
Right.
Yeah. And so finding that balance between really dealing with issues that are affecting, real people and the environment and everything like that, and not going so far that we're being the HOA Karen. That's old. You haven't mowed your grass long enough.
Yeah, we don't need
it's that much too long.
I specifically, before I bought the house in the neighborhood that I did, is there a homeowners association here? Because I am not down with that.
Yeah, no thanks, for sure. Yeah, so trying to service the community, with that to me is what the job of local government is. So if you have an issue with your neighbor or something like that, and we have code about it, then we should be able to do that for people.
They just hired a bunch of people in that capacity that you were speaking of.
Kind of.
Okay.
So the county planning gave a presentation a couple days ago where they just promoted some people, and then they're going to backfill those positions.
I see.
And then specifically for code enforcement, the idea right now is to hire one person to be kind of the receptionist, we'll say, to be able to direct that call to where it needs to go. So if it's a solid waste issue, to send that over to public health and solid waste. If it's a building code issue, to send it over to county planning, that sort of thing. And so I think that's a great way to be efficient with that space, with that employee. And we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch before and after how many cases get closed.
Right.
Because, that's the thing. Like I said, this one on my street, since basically marijuana was a thing, because some people moved onto this piece of property for the purpose of doing that. Right. And they stopped doing that, like in many other places in the county, but they're still there doing the same stuff, not growing, but they're, they have a trailer, and, what's happening with the sewage on that? You don't have a septic set up, so what's happening? There is a stream that goes right through there, so that's
the common thing. So you'll see a piece of property that's got 6 or 7 travel trailers or campers or something like that on it that has no septic, has no utilities, has no running water, nothing like that, and everything is just going on the ground and then either into the stream or into your yard. And
so I listened to your podcast with the malt liquor socialist. I'm trying to figure out what does that mean.
The only explanation I got was that it was a funny name.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to equate malt liquor and socialism.
Right.
What is that? Schlitz malt liquor bowl. That was the thing back in the 70s. Right. Probably before your time.
For me, it was Mad Dog.
Mad Dog.
Mad Dog 2020.
Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. That's going way back. That's. I think the popularity of that was based on it was probably the cheapest wine you could get your hands on.
And they made a flat bottle so it fit in your back pocket.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I remember. I'm 63, so I can just admit to stuff that I did as a teenager now, and it doesn't really make any difference. That was, youthful indulgence, shall we say.
Yeah.
But Mad Dog 2020, we hung out outside of 7-Eleven and sent a guy in to buy it for us. And, we wanted to see what drinking was all about. It didn't end well.
No.
I didn't drink that much, but a couple of my friends just got hammered, and they puked all over the place. It was awful.
Yeah, radioactive looking colors, too.
Yeah. Right. Not good.
We can talk about the food bank and stuff like that if you want to.
Okay. You had... you were working there, or are you still working there? Or?
I'm not anymore, no, unfortunately. And I didn't really get a reason why. I really enjoyed the job, and what my role was primarily was doing these mobile pantries. So on Tuesdays I was up in Wolf Creek, Wednesdays I was out in Williams, and then on Thursday I was in Merlin. And so I would load the food up on these racks and then take them out there, and we did a shopping style pantry. And it was great. So instead of just giving people a box, that's half full of stuff they're never going to use, they could go through and select the items that they wanted.
I see. And so you pull up in a truck and open the doors, and people just know that you're going to be there during a time slot?
Yeah, so it's 12:30 to 2. They don't do it from the truck itself. There's a facility, so like the community center, pretty much in Williams and Wolf Creek, and then the church out in Merlin, the Community Baptist Church, I think is what it's called.
I see.
Yeah, and so that have a specific time, 12:30 to 2, and people show up. They know it's going to be the same every week, but the food changes every week. But yeah, it's a great way to do it with a lot of dignity. And I'll say, if you make, as a single person, if you make less than $46,000, then you qualify to get food from the pantries, because they do 300% above the poverty line. And so it's a great program. And one of the things I learned was the difference between a food bank and the pantries, but also the difference between the individual pantries. So a pantry like Mint, because they're not open to the public, they get about a third as much food as a St. Vincent de Paul or some of these other pantries, because they don't qualify for a TFAP, which is Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program.
So when you say they don't get as much, that sounds like it's all being distributed from the same place.
It is. Yeah, so the food bank distributes to all of the pantries.
So, okay, so the source is the food bank?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And where are they getting it?
So mostly from OFB, so the Oregon Food Bank.
I see. Mm-hmm. So one bank to another. It's a chain of banks.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, and it goes out to the pantries.
And so how does the Oregon Food Bank get it? Is there an actual chain of stuff, or is it that they're funding a purchase at a particular bank? How does that work?
So a lot of it comes from the federal government. So part of the USDA program.
Yes. So we're following the chain upstairs here.
Yes. So it goes all the way up. And so the cuts for the USAID drastically affected the USDA farms and things like that. And so it's just been hit and miss between how much food the food bank has, the Oregon Food Bank has. And so the Josephine County Food Bank, they get as much food from the Oregon Food Bank as possible, but it's been pretty slim here lately, to the point that they put in a big order, and mostly what they get is like potato chips that have been donated and things like that aren't really substantive like they should be. And so with all the changes, there's just been a lot of issues all the way up the supply chain, and so the pantries are really depending on local donations, and the food bank also has buying power of their own. So when people donate money to them, they're able to either buy more food from the Oregon Food Bank, which isn't an option right now, or to do deals with local grocery stores.
I see. And I would assume there's a fair amount of that going on.
Yes. Okay. Yes, and there has to be. So there's kind of two different programs with the local stores. One of them is called Fresh Alliance. So when like meat in particular hits its expiration date, that day they'll take it and freeze it, and then it goes to the food bank, and then we're able to distribute that to people to use that day.
Right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's too close.
Well, that's better than wasting it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've eaten plenty of meat that was past its due date, or a day or two or whatever.
This is a pass a sniff test kind of thing.
Yeah. But freezing is a great thing. It extends the life of a lot of things. So.
Yeah, and so it is just a supplemental program for people, because to qualify for SNAP, if you're an individual, you're basically, if you make more than $2,000 a month, you're not going to qualify for anything.
Yeah.
And so to have this to really help people get through, and families, it's huge. So the food bank feeds about 1 in 4 people in Josephine County.
Jeez, that's a sad statistic. And what we really need is jobs and affordable housing. These are things, but unfortunately, in the current situation, limited property for development. There's all kinds of things in there that government on a level outside of this county could address and make housing cheaper for people.
Sure.
And it's too bad they don't do that, because you know what, unless you facilitate, like you said, this county is, it's a retirement community. Mm-hmm. If everybody past 60 died here tomorrow, this town would die with it.
It would.
Because
mm-hmm.
there's not much going on.
Yeah.
So,
and vice versa. If all the kids keep moving away, it's going to die too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because, you're ultimately, the future, it really is, the children really are the future.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And so speaking of housing in particular, there's a lot that I've had particular interest in for a while, and it just went under contract, as soon as I'm running, it seems. But the Dimmick property, the old hospital, so that's, the whole complex there is about 6.5 acres. Right. And, if I could snap my fingers tomorrow, I would want to turn that into a mixed-use commercial and residential space, anchored by a local co-op market. So where we can really, feature our local farmers and our local produce, local meats, all that kind of stuff, and try to get some real buy-in from residents here in the county, and to have it be mostly 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, but to do it nice, it's not just going to be in like another slum kind of place. Yeah,
and therein lies a problem. Mm-hmm. Where I have a complex going in right next to my building here in Grants Pass, mm-hmm. and it's low income. I hear through the grapevine that this operation that's doing it's very well managed. They're vetting it very well, but I worked in San Francisco for a long period of time as a service plumber. Mm-hmm. And so I know that city like the back of my hand, and I drive past the projects there all the time. Mm-hmm. And they were just like a bomb hit it. It was just trashed out. Nobody cared about the upkeep of, there's no pride happening there. And so they tore the projects down, built another one right like across the street.
Right.
Within 2 or 3 years, it was looking almost the same.
Yeah.
And that was sad. And I think that when it comes to being empathetic with the homeless, or, those in the lower end of the scale, there has to be a standard somewhere. Mm-hmm. It has to be a standard of behavior that you expect from people. And that's just common courtesy to your neighbors to, care enough about the space that you're in to keep it clean and not, be making noise at 3 o'clock in the morning, mm-hmm. and, to not be stealing from people. So we're dealing with that issue with the camp, mm-hmm. And other places. There are plenty of people that are homeless in the town that are not in the camp, I'm mm-hmm. sure.
Yep.
But if you're going to set up a place like that, you would have to have some sort of standard. What's your outlook on that?
Well, first of all, that project wouldn't have anything to do with unhoused people. So this would just be,
low-income housing.
Not necessarily, not even necessarily subsidized housing.
Okay.
But to just have, a commercial community space where people really want to be. So we see a lot of these types of buildings, like the 3/1s, 4/1s, 5/1s, where there's residential above commercial space.
Oh, I see.
And so that's where, a lot of people, if you want to live out on the farm, great. But if you want to live close to where things are happening, and to be able to walk, across a beautiful courtyard to go to a grocery store, or walk over to a little brewery or something like that.
Yeah,
that's what I envision for that place.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. But as far as unhoused, I think that Parker's Place is going to be a great first step. My concern, and something I think that the county could address, is people that are living in their cars or living in their RV, on my street, things like that, for them to have a place to go. So whether it's a parking lot at a store or something that's not been in use for decades, which we have several of those, something that's any facility, anything like that dealing with unhoused has to be managed.
Right.
We've seen what happens with unmanaged camps.
Right. Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah. To even have like a day use fee, like $5 to be able to sleep overnight in a parking lot. And a lot of people live in their cars to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with that. I think we can come up with something.
You know what? I mean, that would, as you said, that would definitely have to be managed because you can't. I mean, the camps as they're set up now are. They're not low barrier; they're no barrier. You know, and the J Street thing was a disaster. Yeah, and you just can't repeat that. You know, and unfortunately for the people that live right near that camp, I mean, you see the same couple that comes to all the city council meetings railing about it, and I feel for them, but. As to the Parker's Place situation, from what I understand, there's sort of a standard. You're going to have to agree to certain things. Sure. You know, and I don't know if would the Parker's Place would that conform to whatever criteria there is for low barrier?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that criteria?
There's a lot of explanation there, but basically you can't turn anybody away if they're on drugs or if they're on out, like if they're drunk or whatever, as long as they're not causing a problem, But and it's basically that as long as you're not causing a problem, then you have a place to stay.
So you would get there would be homeless people that would go there. But you're always going to have a certain segment of them that doesn't want anything to do with being in with a bunch of people. Maybe they like their free lifestyle or whatever. So
if that, or even if mental health, really prevents them from being able to live in community with people, which is probably the vast majority of those people we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So it's what we have to have is an objectively reasonable place for them to go, whatever that means.
I hate that. I just hate that. It's stupid because that's different things to different people, and why don't you just spell out? I mean, if you think that something is objectively reasonable when you're writing this law, why don't you just write that into there, and it either passes or it doesn't? Right,
or have a committee set up that these are the standards if you have this many people as a population or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So we have to have somewhere for them to go before we can start policing camping in parks and things like that.
Right.
So once we have that, then the people who really can't live in community, with other people are most likely going to be jailed or they're going to go to a facility. I wish that we had more mental health facilities we used to. But.
Yeah, we should have that because it's clearly a problem, and you're not going to fix this by sending them to jail. All you're going to do is overwhelm cops with mental health problems that they're not equipped to deal with.
Totally.
Yeah. And I have seen car camping, and there are some people who are sleeping in their car and it's relatively tidy and it's not a big deal. But I've also seen the monstrosities where the suspension is gone and half the siding is ripped off, and that's probably a different category. Wouldn't you agree?
It is, and as someone who's shrunk their living space significantly multiple times, it's difficult to deal with. You have all this stuff, and then something happens, and now you're living in your car, or in my case, I lived in a travel trailer out at White Horse Park. And so I went from a 4-bedroom house down to 28 feet. And it was a lot and to deal with and to try to manage that. And so, I definitely have empathy for those people. How can we help them, stabilize? Because the issue with people I've talked to that are living in their cars or their RVs kind of out, is they don't have a place to go, and then they get these $100 tickets, every few days. Yeah, and it's like, how can you possibly get ahead?
I get that, and that's I understand your thinking on having a place for them, and there would have to be some criteria there, about drug use and stuff like that, because I'll tell you, the drug use is a rampant thing, and I think. There's too little public involvement in programs to get these people off of drugs, because you can't fix these people's problems until the drugs are taken out of the situation. You can't, there's a lot of the nonprofit stuff where they're facilitating the drug use by providing them with needles and Narcan and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get people off of drugs. I mean, I fail to recognize that as empathy. So, and I understand that there are a lot of conflicts. There's money involved in this stuff, and so it, pure intent. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much there is.
Well, I mean, what we do know is that people who are doing intravenous drugs, people who are shooting up, it doesn't matter to them if the needle is clean or dirty. They're going to shoot up. And so watching someone, use the same needle for the 15th time, it's rusted, it's gross.
I mean, I get that, but so if you're putting the energy into contact for somebody where you would hand them a needle, why wouldn't you on somebody like that? And I get that there are different levels of functionality in drug addicts.
Totally.
Some of them are living in a house and you don't even know they're a heroin addict.
Yeah, no, they show up to be a judge the next day.
Right, yes, that's entirely possible. But there are people who their drug use becomes a public problem, and those people, I think, there has to be some compulsory aspect here.
Yeah, and that's kind of the difficulty. So,
because a functional drug addict can buy his own needles.
For sure. Yeah, totally. No, I agree with that, and they probably will. Yeah. And so it's kind of defining the problem. So if we're talking about drug use, if it's all drug use, so I mean, alcohol is a drug. Yeah. So I mean, if you're drinking and the Gospel Rescue Mission knows about it, you're out of there. Right. Now, if it's marijuana, which we have recreational marijuana stores everywhere.
If a different level of accountability. So what do you think the difference is between people who shun the Gospel Rescue Mission as an option as opposed to the Parker Place situation?
Yeah, so I mean, Parker's Place, like I said, it can't refuse service to people just because they think or they know that they're on drugs. Right. So as long as they're not a problem, then they're going to be welcome there. And I think that we have to start somewhere. So a lot of people say, just lock them up, put them in jail. And so to that, I would respond like, okay, so we agree that housing first is the model. You just want to do it in the most expensive way possible.
Right, yes. I heard you say that the other night. Yeah. That's clever.
And so it's where do we start? How, for me, it's about hope. If these people don't have, here we're an economically depressed area. So it's not like, hey, if you clean yourself up, here's a job. That doesn't really happen. It's not, hey, if you clean yourself up, we can get you into an apartment or something like that. Right. We don't have, there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, though, I mean, I happen to know personally a guy whose son is a drug addict and is out in the parks and whatever.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And so this guy, sometimes he leaves, he goes to San Francisco, he goes to LA, he's all over the place. Now, as somebody young and unencumbered with a lot of physical possessions, you can reposition yourself to an area that is more economically viable to you. And that's a smarter decision for somebody like that. But, if you're really drugged out, you may not be thinking rationally enough to do that.
Sure. Yeah, it's difficult. And there's a lot of things that keep, particular unhoused people here. So whether that is family, whether it's their doctors, any number of things, a job, it's difficult. And this is obviously a situation we're dealing with nationwide. And as the affordability crisis expands and grows, we're only going to see more of that.
Right.
So even with a great paying job like the commissioner's position, so I mean it pays $100,000 a year at it. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to buy the average house in Grants Pass or in Josephine County.
Right. You'd have to have a bit of a track record there to rationalize a loan, but still you'd be buying in the lower mid part of the scale. And availability is another thing here, which is just not much of it available. And I think that, between the federal and state governments, they own 70% of Josephine County.
They do, yeah.
Certainly, you can cut
70% is BLM specifically.
Right. So
Yeah.
You certainly you can cut loose with some of that stuff. There's probably a fair amount of it that would be quite adequate and maybe even quite good for that purpose.
Perhaps. Yeah. But what I think that we're seeing is that, whether it be energy costs, anything like that, we just expanded outward, suburban sprawl, from the 50s up through the maybe the mid 2000s. And that's the most expensive way to build, to have to keep extending the utilities out further and further, and to develop, this 5-acre property to house one family is very expensive to do. And so for me, infill is the answer.
But from an individual standpoint, when the individual is buying the 5-acre property, they're the ones facilitating that. When a developer puts in a subdivision in the rural area, there's septic and well. You don't have the street services. You have electricity and maybe internet or something like that, but you don't really have the city services there. And the developer is picking up the money for all of that development, including the paving of the new road coming in there. So then the county adopts the road after the fact, but that's paid for by the taxes of the people who now own houses in that subdivision or whatever.
But yeah, as the urban growth boundary expands, we are expanding services as well. And so, I mean, that's just what it is.
Right, into city services. But urban growth boundaries, that kind of facilitates scarcity.
It does.
And so as a result of that, prices are higher. And, I have a utopian dream of, affordable housing for people. I think there's a lot of methods to build a house that are way cheaper than what we do now. And, you don't need a McMansion. You need a functional house.
Right.
These things can be done a lot cheaper, and we're going to have to rediscover that as a society if you want the young people to come up, and then if the government would just stop spending so much money, inflation wouldn't be as much of an issue. Unfortunately, we are where we are, and it is what it is.
For sure. Yeah, so and I would say with that, we see a lot less mobility in housing than we used to. So it would make sense for when you're starting out, you have that 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and then when you start having kids, you move into that 3 or 4 bedroom house, with the yard and dog, all that stuff.
And then new people come in behind you.
Exactly, and then when you get older, you want to downsize.
Right.
But people are stuck where they're at.
I'm there.
Right?
I'm there. I have so much crap. I just want to get rid of this stuff, and my kids are gone. I just want like a 2-bedroom house and and
Yeah, and a lot of people want that. They want to be closer to services, closer to the hospital, closer to the doctor, grocery stores, whatever. And but they have a 2.5% interest loan on their house that they've got mostly paid off. Or entirely paid off. Why would they want to give that up to go take out a 7% loan? On a new house or something like that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, by the time you're in your 60s, you ought to have some equity built up to where when you liquidate a larger house, you can buy outright on the lower end of the scale.
Right. But gosh, even the sticker shock, if you're 60s and 70s.
It's insane.
Yeah. Am I going to pay $500,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house? That's
yes, you are.
Way worse than what I've got.
Yeah, you are. So. And that's, this is the future, but hopefully they, we work something out on that. It's hard to be optimistic when you don't see this stuff coming down the pike right now because government moves slowly, and we've dragged this on long enough. So you'll get the opportunity to vote for Matt if you choose to do so on May 19th. Position 2. And it was good meeting you, Matt.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you. Appreciate you, Mike.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.